So, would you like to customize your Radiomaster screen? Well, I'm RC Jim, and I'm here to show you how. So, what about this screen? Okay, we've got a variety of things that are happening, and there's a variety of things that can be done. First off, when we first started it up, you saw the picture of me with the P51, and that is what we call a splash screen. It's sort of neat and cool to have something that's especially related to you, either to get you in the right mood when you're getting ready to fly, or maybe to impress your mates. So the next thing that we can look at is the matter of this background. So I've got the sky and clouds that are there. Oftentimes people have a lot more, but you can see I've got a lot of other stuff on here, and really I want that background to be pleasant and encouraging, but non-cluttered and not going to interfere with the other information that's going to be displayed there. So we've got that matter. Then there's the matter of the image of the plane that you're going to fly. My MX2 here was not one of the models that were available in the transmitter when you go to select it. You imagine you could find one someplace, but you can also just take a picture of your airplane, get rid of the background, and you've got a nice thing there, along with the actual name that you've given to that airplane. And then you've got all of this other information, and not just the information that you see there, but you can have other screens that have additional information on it. So we want to go through these things and let you know how you can set these things up. Now, having mentioned all of that, there's this document that I've put together on the website that you can see all of this stuff that we are about to do here, including some graphics and other things and basic information, all the stuff that you might need. So go to rcjim.com and go to the blog where you got information about planes and stuff, and you will find that there. And of course I'll have a link in the description down at the bottom of this video. So the first thing that I give in the document is just simply some basic information. You know, what size graphics that you need, what folder that they go into, and all of that type of thing. So let's show you what's involved with that. So let's begin with a splash screen. What you need to do for that is you find yourself a photo and resize it to 480 by 272. Save it in a PNG format, and then you can stick it on your computer. Of course, you can use Paint or Photoshop, other things like that, to modify it, add things to it, and all of that. But basically, you'll be plugging in your radio to the computer so that you can access the files on the computer, and that, of course, is using the top USB-C connection, hooking that up with a cable to your computer. As you go in there, you'll have a look at your SD card, and in there, for the splash screen, it'll be under Images. So you'll go to Images, and before you add the new one in there, you want to rename the old one just in case you want to go back and use it sometime. So we got splash.png. So that splash.png is your splash screen. Any other ones in there with splash in front are just other options, and if you wanted to use one of those, you just rename it to be this one that says splash. So that's all there is to a splash screen. The next thing has to do with the main screen background. Now that will be the same file size. It'll still be a 480 by 272, but that one you'll be putting in a different folder. You'll be putting it in under Themes. And so as you go to your SD card, and of course you'd be, if you're doing this, you'd be doing this from your computer, not from the radio. Yeah, you go to Themes. You pick the theme that is the one that you're using, and with Edge TX, most likely it's going to default to Edge TX as the theme. If you're not sure about that, what you can do is get out of this and I'll go back into System there, and go across to where you see this palette picture, a little palette icon, and you can see there it's got a tick mark next to Edge TX default. So that's saying the Edge TX is the theme for this particular one. So you go back to the SD card and under themes, we got to get into Edge TX. And once we're into Edge TX, then you've got background. So this is my one with the clouds that I'm using. I started out having one with the clouds of the ground in there as well, but then I decided the ground was really interfering with visibility on those things displayed along the bottom, so I cropped it down to just be the clouds. And the original one, of course, is I've labeled back GR_old, and that's the one that was on the radio to begin with. So that's all there is to know about themes, really. Although I might mention, choose something that's light, unless you're going to do everything dark on top of it. But you want contrast between what's being displayed on top of this background and the background itself. A lot of things will have a clear background behind them, so it'll just be either text or an image being displayed over top of what the background is. So you want a lot of contrast. I would avoid having things like the pilot guy and the other plane in there. You're going to put a plane in there anyhow, so you might as well just have the one that you're going to fly. And the pilot guy is unnecessary, and it's just cluttering the thing up, and already we've got lots of stuff we're displaying on there. So keep it simple, keep it light, and that will help it to show up really nice. Okay, so what about the model images? Well, on my MX2 here, there wasn't an MX2 in the images that came with the radio. And I suppose I could have hunted around and I might have found something similar. But why not just take a picture of the plane? So you take a picture of the plane, and you can use your Photoshop, or I use Corel Paint, whatever you're going to use in terms of the graphic editing software. Remove the background, and a lot of these, they will have a little tool to where you just take the circle and you go along the edge of the model, and as you go along the edge, it erases the background and it leaves the other part of the image. Now, if you're going to use something like that, or something even fancier, where, like with Adobe Photoshop, I believe there's a tool there where it will just automatically pick all of the edges of the plane. Usually it doesn't get it all right, and it's a bit of a hassle modifying it to make it right. But nonetheless, what you really want when you take the picture of the plane is you want a lot of contrast between the plane and the background. So if you got a gray military jet, don't stick it on your gray driveway to take the picture. Pick a nice contrasting background. I suppose if you want to get fancy, you get a roll of paper or something and use that behind it. But you don't have to be all of that careful. In this particular case, it was a gray driveway that was behind it. I had a little bit of problem on the prop because the prop was gray. But in a case like that, I just simply avoided it with the tool that detects the edge, and then I went in there manually and erased along the edges of it. So, it doesn't have to be perfect, something like that, that's fine, and that's just, not a lot of work to do that, and that's very helpful. So, where do you put those? Well, it's just simply in the images folder in your SD card. So, just under images there. You got lots of planes in there. And of course, as you think about it, some of these planes have got a background behind them. And if you have a background behind it, yeah, it works, but, much, much nicer to have a plane that just appears to be flying, in your, across your screen. Just give it a name. There is a limit to the number of characters. I'm not exactly sure what the total limit is, but I can say that 8 characters or less will definitely work. I use PNG files to have that clear background. JPEG can't have a clear background, so that's actually a white background behind that. So if you use a PNG, that allows you to have a clear background, and that will look really nice. So give it a nice descriptive name that you can find when you go to look at it. And there we go, HK MX2, Hobby King MX2. So there it is. Okay, so that's all of those things. Now, what about other customization, in particular the screen displays and what information is being displayed? So we go back here, you see a whole bunch of stuff. We got Edge TX up in the corner, and that's just like a back thing that takes you back to the main screen. I've got altitude here, stab, which is my stabilization switch.
Stabilize mode.
So whether or not I'm in stabilize mode. FDEA with a Lemon RX receiver, that's your RSSI signal strength. And you've also got these bars over here that show signal strength, and at a glance when you're flying, typically that'll be what you're concerned with. But this one here, sometimes when you're doing bench testing and looking at other things, it's kind of good to look at it. You know, it's what's displayed when you do a range test. And always when I do a range test, I'm looking down to see what the value is. It'll be between 0 and 100. 100 is what it would be if it's right next to the transmitter is right next to the plane. And 0 is, of course, absolutely nothing. But it is interesting to see what it is from time to time. So that's that value there. And this combination thing right here, the little speaker up at the top is whether the sound is on and how much sound there is. That I use with a slider. You can see the slider going up and down on the side and the little bars going across on the speaker. Transmitter battery level, and of course signal strength for the control signal going to the airplane as to how strong it's being received by the airplane, the receiver in the airplane. Got the flight time, and that of course is a very prominent thing because you want to just glance down and see that. But I've also got battery voltage, and the battery voltage, the way I've got it set up is actually to show the voltage per cell, in that as you have different numbers of cells, you could get confused as what you're supposed to be seeing there. But that can be very handy to know as well, and of course it's telling me what sort of battery I've got and what the minimum voltage it has seen during the flight and that type of thing. And then of course the airplane. By hitting the page button on the side over here, I can go across and see another page, and in this one I still have the flight time and the battery voltage, but I've also got the position for all of the controls. So I can see on a scale of minus 100 to plus 100 just what everything is set at. And that can be handy, again, when you're working on the bench and stuff like that. But just in case even if I'm not looking at that while I'm flying, if I accidentally hit the button and went over to that while I was flying, I still want to be able to see my flight time and my battery voltage. Okay, with the battery voltage, where these white bars are over here, that actually lights up with green as to how much voltage we got, and we'll show you that later. So how do you set those things? Well, you start out by touching the Edge TX up in the corner, and then you touch screen settings. And when you get to screen settings, you'll have the corner thing that takes you back. You've got the bar, which is your header across the top, and it's referred to here as top bar. You don't have to have that, and if you said you didn't want to have it, then it wouldn't display anything there. But typically we want it. And then the 1 and the 2 are different pages that we've got, and it has to do with the main part of the screen as to what's being displayed there, and you can have a whole bunch of them if you want. And to add more, you just hit the plus over here at the side to add another page to it. When you're looking at the pages, you can pick the layout that you want. So it takes this whole screen. In this case, it'll divide it up into 2 segments on the left and 1 segment on the right. And of course, select whether you want a top bar or not, whether or not you want the flight mode to show down at the bottom, whether you want the sliders to show along the sides, whether you want the trims to be shown along the sides, whether you want a mirror image as compared to ordinary image, and whether you want to remove that screen. As you think about these things here, keep in mind that you can only have one widget in each of those sections. So to set up those sections, you touch Set Up Widgets, and then you just simply touch on whichever section that you want to work with. And if you hit Select Widget, it'll allow you to select which widget you want. And you got all of these widgets, you know, heaps of different things that you can show in there. And many of these things will be multiple things even underneath it. In this particular case, we want the timer to be displayed. And so I go to Timer, and they ask me which timer I want. I could pick any one of the timers that are in radio, but I want Timer 1, which is, say, countdown. And then I can hit back or just touch off of that, and it goes on there. With the battery widget, the best one, I reckon, is this bat analog. You've got multiple different ones there, but I've had some problems with the other ones, either not working or not staying there. That after I select it and I go out, I'm able to continue to use it during that flight, but when I turn off the radio and turn it back on for that plane, it's not there anymore. I don't know why that might be, but bat analog works good. When you get into bat analog, we'll go to Widget Settings, and this will automatically come up when you first put it in there. But A3 is a sensor, and I'm assuming you got telemetry. So I use Lemon RX receivers mainly, and I love the ones with telemetry and stabilization. Don't always use the stabilization, but the telemetry is gold. You know, it's just wonderful to have that. And so the A3 is the actual full battery voltage. So not just the voltage going to the receiver, but it's the actual voltage of the battery. Has a wire that is sampling that voltage and sending the value back by telemetry. You can pick a color, and if you have a light screen, make sure you pick a nice dark color, because any text that's being displayed is going to be displayed in that color, and you want it to stand out, even if you're out in the sun and that type of thing. You can choose whether to show total voltage or just to show voltage per cell. I leave the show total voltage off because I want to see the voltage per cell, because that's going to be a reference that is always the same as a reference for me. I don't have to be thinking about, oh, do I have a 6S or a 4S battery in this, or, you know, whatever it might be. I know, oh, you know, getting down to 3.8 volts, you know, better be landing here soon. Okay, lithium ion, you know, given that you got a LiPo, if you had a lithium high voltage, you could indicate that there. So that's your battery setting. The picture of the plane and its name over here, that one is model info. So you just go down here to model info, and that will automatically have the plane and the name of the plane. But you note that the color on there is a rather light color that is the standard color for the system. And I want something dark. So I'm going to take it down and make it something much darker. If you want to be real consistent, of course, generally you have all of this set up on a template model, so that when you make a new model, you pick a template. It's already got all these settings in it, and you don't have to do them again. But if you're modifying an existing one to match what your standard is, you can actually say, if you're picking the hue saturation and how dark it is. I don't know what that stands for. It's this one here. That's how dark it is. But anyway, you just look at those numbers there, and you can drag up and down those dots on the sliders to get the standard number, the 2068937 that you recorded, if that's what it is, and you can have that the same on everything if you want that kind of consistency. So put in standard there. Size, I find standard size is a little bit small, so I pick large. Don't want to fill the background because I want the plane looking like it's flying through the sky. And I don't want to use the theme color, I want to use my color. So we can hit back. And so now we got the MX2, we got the plane, nothing colored in the background, just simply showing the background of the main background behind it. I don't know if I mentioned it before, but the flight modes are down here.
Flight mode 2. Flight mode 3, flight mode 1.
And then the sixth thing is your 6 position buttons across the top, just under the Radiomaster name. And that will show you whatever you've pressed as far as those buttons up there. I still haven't quite figured out what to put on those, but, but anyway, it displays it there if you want it. Okay, what about the header? Well, if we go back in there to look at the choices, the header is the one with a line across it up there. And there's not much in terms of options here other than picking the theme that you want to use. But if we hit Set Up Widgets, it allows us to pick widgets for all these things across the top. So I've got altitude as the first one. And with altitude, a Lemon RX receiver actually has a built-in barometer, and it can tell you both altitude as well as rate of climb. So if I had a sailplane, I might want to have next to that rate of climb. Can't use it in competition and stuff like that, but if you're out flying for yourself, that'll be something that could be very handy. So that's that one. The stab is what I've done to indicate the value of the stabilization switch. And with all of these ones up to here, all of these are using the value widget. So when you go into widget settings, we got the stab one here just to remind ourselves. Okay, that's the settings. I haven't selected the widget. I go into there and I say select widget. Okay, if I go down here to value, that one there, that's what all of those things are across the top. And I've just gone down here and okay, for my stability, there's a whole bunch of different things that I could pick. Stab, there we go. Stab. And so when I go to there, now, because I've limited it in position 1 and 2, it's 0, and it's only position 3 that I have 100. So that gives me what I want with that one. Mentioned the FDEA for Lemon RX is your RSSI signal strength. So it's not the signal from the plane to you. It's the other way around. It's your control signal. It's the important one. The control signal going to the airplane. How strong is it being received by the airplane? And so while that's really important, I also have these bars over here. And the bars will be the main thing I'm looking at. Just look at that if I want to know what the number is. And at the end, it's got the date. That's standard there. Good idea to keep that there just in case you're wondering. So let's go back then to our menu. And we now have a second menu. You can see on this one, I've got 4 segments there. And let me show you what I've got, and then we're going to come back and actually change that. So let's go back and make sure we're all the way back. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4 segments is what we've got. So just in case I hit this button when I'm flying, I still want to be able to see what my time remaining is. I want to see what the voltage is, so that's pretty important stuff. But not so much while I'm flying, but while I'm playing around with the plane, I might want to know what's happening with the different sticks and, you know, how are they working and all that type of thing. And this is very helpful information to have with regard to that type of thing. Because I've got it in 2 segments, I've got actually 2 widgets in there. One starting with channel number 1 and one starting with channel number 2. But let me show you the way you can get another channel in there for free. Okay, so let's go to our screen settings. And we're on number 2. We're going to set up widget. Oh, actually, I'm going to go back. We're on number 2. Instead of having the 4, we're going to go with the 2 and the 1 again. Okay. Now I'm going to set up widgets. And because I've changed that, it's changing the thing. So put my timer there again. Okay, there's a timer, timer 1. Yes, timer 1 is what I want. Okay, now we want this one down here. And this is going to be bat analog. And sensor is A3. Okay, color, nice dark blue. Lithium ion, and that's all I need for that one. So we got timer and battery voltage. But now for this one, what I do is I come down here to outputs. Outputs are the channels. I tell it what channel I want to start with, and then it's just going to fill it up with channels as long as there's room. Okay? So because I've got one thing on that side, it's going to give me more channels. Filling the background, it'd be up to you, but I think it's probably a good idea to fill it, to make it real clear. So this is just a real light color, so that's fine. Okay, and then the color could be a tiny bit darker. Okay, so we'll save that. So I come out of that, and voila. Now we've got a channel list, but because it's got this whole side to fill up, it's gone to channel 9 rather than just 1 to 4 and 5 to 9. If I did want to have more, like let's say you had a screen where you've got 9 channels there and then you've got 10 to 18 over on this side over here, you would have a two-sided screen set up. This one over here on this side, you'd say start with channel 1. The one on this side, you'd say start with channel 10. And then you would have a full 18 channels displayed. In the document that you can get on the website, it will give you this chart right here. And in case you're wondering what's what in terms of the different switches and where they are and all that type of thing, it has that. And it also has a key for you on the view that you have to customize the controls in the plane. So here we are with the plane connected. I'm not exactly right next to it. It's a couple meters away, so you can see the RSSI is altering between 99 and 100. Still maintaining all of the bars over there, so that's all fine and good. You can see that the altitude, I have more of a faded value on it, and that's mainly because I'm not particularly concerned about the altitude and I don't want it to distract me. But if I did want to look closely, I could see what elevation I was. I can imagine going too high and being in the wrong airspace, but if you want to be sure about that, you got the altitude there. Of course, the stability works like normal. You can see now with the battery, we're at 100%, or pretty close to it. It's 4.14 volts instead of 4.2. With any of these, they can be calibrated, but basically, it's going to tell you what's happening with the battery. Keep in mind with this battery that the voltage is going to go down anytime you're into the throttle. As you note, with the dark color on the display, it's making it really clear what the voltage is. Having the difference between the flight time and the voltage, I think, is good, and that the flight time is over this lighter color thing that sort of makes it stand out, and so that's quite easy to read. But the voltage is over a combination set of backgrounds, so I think it's good to have that extra contrast in it. Okay, so telling us the total voltage is 16.5 or 6 volts. It's a 4S battery. This minimum is the lowest that it's seen here on this flight. Well, that's everything that you need to know with regard to your display. If you have additional thoughts and tips and ideas and what really works for you, put them in the comment section down below. I would appreciate it, and others that are watching and looking at those comments would appreciate it as well. Make sure that you give us a like, and of course have a look at the other videos on our site. If you haven't subscribed, just click on my picture there on the left, and it'd be great to have you on board, and it'll help you to keep track of everything that's happening on the channel. You have a great day. I'm RC Jim signing off.